2024 Finance Committee meeting. Committee members present, myself, Councilor Di Natale, President Zarella, Councilors Walsh, Boschman, and Cruz in attendance. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording for public broadcast. Anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating your name and city of residence. Seeing nobody, I ask at this time that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. While I typically have public comment, I usually reserve that for when we actually have the orders. So each order I'll take, I'll ask if there's any public comment after the department head speaks, and then we'll proceed. So we will start with the agenda 08824. The City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of grant funds from the Department of Fire Services Firefighter Safety Equipment Grant in the approximate amount of $24,840 for the purpose of purchasing an accountability board mobile command console, scene lighting, a rescue boat, and lifting airbags. Chief Suarez.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members, and thank you all once again for your time. I'm here to respectfully request the acceptance of this grant. It was awarded to the Fitchburg Fire Department by the Department of Fire Services, and we're going to use this grant to replace outdated and expired equipment, along with purchasing some new equipment. This DFS grant will be used to purchase a new set of rescue lifting bags, a quick deploy inflatable rescue boat, some battery-powered scene lighting, and a command board that we truly need. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody want to see the lighting? He just gave it to me.
I have extras also.
Motion to approve?
He's using this up in Clegon. I just want to tell you that.
Motion made and seconded to approve 08824. If there are no objections, take the Senate unanimous consent. Seeing none, it passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
08924, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $1,900,000 from available funds to credit employee benefits health insurance. We have Treasurer Cervantes here, and I know the Auditor Cronin is here to speak on that as well, as is Director of Human Resources, Susan Davis. Yes.
Good evening. So this request, it will cover healthcare expenses for the remainder of the year, as well as an increase of what could be as much as 22% for the upcoming year. The healthcare expenses claims this year are way up, particularly high-cost claims. So it was something that was unforeseen, but we do have to cover them. The premium will increase on July 1st, possibly as much as 22%, but we pay a month in advance. So in June, we will be paying for the first month of next year. So this 1.9 will also help cover that increase. The city is currently in negotiations with the PEC regarding possible plan changes or possible cost share changes, but we are not likely to come to any kind of decisions or agreement before open enrollment in May. So I expect that the plan will renew on July 1st as it is, and changes may come later. The 22% includes what is projected to be needed to cover our costs for next year, as well as to put some more money into the Health Trust Fund, which has been hit rather hard this year, and so it's a little on the low side right now, so we should try to add some more to it.
I'll just begin by, so the $17.1 million that's currently budgeted, that was an estimate at the beginning of the last fiscal year that we knew about at the time.
That was based on the estimate that we had at the beginning of, before the beginning of the.
And is that estimate provided in part by a third-party actuary?
Yes, the city has a healthcare consultant.
And so the reason for the massive increase this fiscal year is due to, you said, high-cost claims. So can you just expand upon that a little more? So we've had more employees this year and retirees have medical claims covered of a high-cost nature than we've typically seen in past fiscal years?
Yes, we've had a higher number overall of all types of claims, but not particularly, but in addition to that, a lot of the claims are high-cost claims.
And is this something that's strictly with Fitchburg, or is there other communities in the state, Commonwealth, that, do you know, I mean, is this something that's across the board, or is something that,
My understanding from speaking with a healthcare consultant is that many cities and towns are facing the same situation this year.
and so the premium, the questions I'm asking, considering that they are estimations at the start of the fiscal year, or prior to the start of the fiscal year, in my 18 years of doing this, I've never seen an increase of this magnitude. There are years where I have experienced we've actually done better than we thought,
Yes?
which would then close to free cash. There are years where I would see maybe 400,000, we were off, and we'd have to supplement. This almost 2 million is something I have never seen before, which is why I wanted to ask the question of what drove this. Because when you see a number like this, the immediate knee-jerk reaction among some is whoever did the estimating, you know, must have did it out of left field, pulled it out of their backside, and not. And what I'm trying to explain to people who ask this is there are certain things that we budget for. We saw it 2 weeks ago with the school department. You only know what you know on March 15th, April 15th. You don't know what employees are going to have for medical issues throughout the year. You don't know what kind of claims they're going to file, the expensive nature of them, and you also don't know fully what the rates are going to be. So it sounds like a lot of these things just exploded all at once.
And hit all at once, yes.
And so this increase is not only to cover what we anticipate we will need in the trust for the remainder of this fiscal year, but also anticipating that June payment for July
Correct.
for next fiscal year.
Correct.
And I'm assuming the next budget will be adjusted accordingly based on what we know 9 months into this fiscal year.
Yes.
I'm happy that we have, even though we are using free cash for this, thank God we had the free cash there to begin with. Because if this were 15 years ago, you'd be seeing the scores of police, fire, and public works employees on the unemployment line to cover something this big. So that much I will take away from is, you know, a blessing that we have this reserve available to cover this unforeseen expense, which is the appropriate use of free cash. Councilor Boschman.
And you're saying a 22% increase, so you're talking about over $3 million come July 1st?
Is that about right, Jackie?
Yeah, I think a 16% is $3 million. So that's 16% would be the low end at $3 million.
Now,
And that assumes that the plan design doesn't change, that the employer share doesn't change. If everything remains the way it is right now, then 22% would be the worst case scenario. And that would, that would provide the trust fund with, you know, the monies to pay the claims that are being made, and also to restore the trust fund. It's been depleted for the past year or so because of these high claims. So we not only have to recognize the increasing costs, but we have to catch up because the trust fund's been steadily depleted. And I will add that the 1.9 million is probably high. I'm looking at the worst case scenarios. But on the flip side, you know, when we get to the end of the year and we know what the next 3 months has in store, that money can be put in reserve to, you know, appropriate for next year because this problem's going to carry into next year.
now, my question to you is, you say enrollment's up and everything. Let's just say Paul Boschman and my wife, Carmen. My wife works over here and I work over here. She's got health care. I got health care. Does the city say to the employee, well, your wife's birthday comes first, so her claims goes underneath her birthday first, and then my insurance should cover the rest? How does that work? Is the city like that? No, you don't.
I'm not sure. Is this scenario where you and your wife both work for the city? And
No, we don't work for the city. She works for a different company.
Okay.
But she's covered underneath her plan and my plan. I got the family.
Okay, all right.
And instead of me putting all the bills onto the city, because we're self-insured, her insurance they would say to me, my insurance company at the time would say, she's going to go through her insurance and we'll pick up the tab the rest, the remaining?
I really don't know how that works.
Maybe Sue Davis knows.
You know what, I don't, in terms of the secondary, I don't. For secondary, what they use for that criteria, you know, what they're gonna cover.
All right.
Unfortunately, I don't, I'm not certain that there is a lot of that here.
So, as I said earlier, there has been precedent in the city where there was, I believe, 1 year, a few years ago, we were under budget by like $1.5 million. It was a massive number. Because we didn't have as many claims filed as what the baseline would require by the actuary, because the actuary is an analyst. If we have lower than average claims, we make out pretty good as a city from the end of the fiscal year. So I have seen fiscal years where we came pretty close, where we came well under, and I've seen years where we were off a few $100,000 here or there in the negative. This is even bigger than that because of the unprecedented nature of the high-cost claims. I just did a back-of-the-envelope calculation because, again, as the auditor said, this is an estimate. We're hoping not to use this extra 1.9, and of course, whatever we don't use will then close to free cash after June 30th. But the monthly average expenditure in healthcare right now in the city is $1.4 million. If you project that out 12 months, it's about $16.5 million. But that doesn't include the 22% jump at the last month and any other high-cost claims that aren't part of that burn rate. So this is to give us a cushion so we don't have to do this again before the year closes. So what I'm trying to tell the public and the council is 1.9 is a worst-case estimate. It's more likely, let's say, we'll only do $1 million of that. But whatever we don't do will close for next fiscal year. So we'd rather be safe than sorry, and that's what you should be doing on estimations like this. Certainly in this line item where there are some fiscal years, you're making a Hail Mary pass on these because you have no way of knowing new entrants into the plan, what kind of medical issues our employees are going to have, and the rates, nationally, Commonwealth-wise, you name it. So it's unfortunate financially, but we have the coverage to cover it and withstand the increase, and hopefully it won't be as big as we're forecasting, so then we will have that money to carry over next year in case there's any additional issues with what we forecast for next fiscal year. And you did say that the PEC is meeting. They have all this data, so there's discussions
We've begun
going on right
discussions.
now. Okay. Yes, Counselor.
You said earlier, I just want to make it very clear, if there is, just say we only use $1 million, there's $1 million left over, I don't want it to go back into the free cash. I want it to go back for a buffer. I would say that a buffer, not free cash.
Well, no, but that I won't speak for the auditor, but that's what I mean. When it goes to free cash, it's freed up for any lawful municipal purpose. I would assume that the city is going to err on the side of caution and reserve that for next year's issues.
Okay, that's right.
I'm not saying, oh, look, we did $900,000 better, spend it on December 15th when we get the free cash certification letter, okay? Because we won't have a problem with our health trust fund in December. We'll have more of an issue of what it may be like in where we are now, April, because it's getting close to the end. So I'm not advocating we spend whatever we don't use. I'm saying whatever we don't use will serve as a buffer for next year's challenges, whatever they may be. Hopefully there's none, but we'll find out a year from now. So,
Don't get sick.
and this number includes the school employees as well, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Motion to approve?
I'll have to second that as much as I hate to.
Motion made and seconded to approve 08924. If there are no objections, it is approved. Thank you. Last on the agenda, 9024, an order that there being hereby is appropriated the sum of $322,430 from available funds to credit the school department transportation. Mr. Roach, weren't you just here?
I was going to say, I think I had a sneak preview meeting a couple weeks ago.
What's an early Christmas gift?
Yes. I mean, I think similarly to what we talked about the last time, you know, we had seen, and it's not exclusive to Fitchburg Public Schools, but significant increases in transportation costs. When we went out to bid last year, it was for the 2 tiers of special ed transportation, so that'd be in-district special ed, so that'd be vans that would transport students from their homes to the schools in the city of Fitchburg, or students who are out of district special ed. And we had one bid, and it was for $4.7 million, and that's where we were. So that was June 30th when that contract was executed. The Fitchburg Public Schools operating budget was approved, I think, June 5th last year, so it's kind of that time frame. I think we're in a better position for FY25. We had our contracts executed about 2 months ago for the next 5 years, so we should be in a better position, but we kind of knew this year was going to be a struggle, so that's where we find ourselves over at this point.
So we have some finite understanding of what these costs will be over the next 5 years,
We do, yeah.
as opposed to this past year where we took an educated guess because we were in the middle of negotiation.
Exactly.
Bidding, okay.
Yep.
And so, Mr. Roach, the 710 that we did 2 weeks ago, that was to meet the state-required net school spending.
Exactly.
Correct in saying, am I saying that transportation is not part of net school spending?
Does not count.
Does not count under
Yeah.
state law.
So, right.
So this 310 is in addition to that 710 on the non-net school spending side. that we have
Specific just to the transportation costs,
Okay.
which roughly are in the $7 to $8 million range.
Is that this, oh,
Councilor Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you said a lot of this increases is from out-of-district students?
So this particular school year, for FY24, we did, with the city procurement office, we worked on a bid package just for special ed because the 2 contracts were out of sequence. So the big yellow buses, it's referred to as regular school day transportation, and then the 2 tiers, the forms of special ed transportation, which would be the in-district or out-of-district, they were out of sequence by 1 year, and we weren't able to extend for just 1 year, which was FY24, because it had already been 5 years. So we had to go out to bid for just special ed for this current fiscal year. For the next one, we've now packaged them together, all, together for the next 5 years. So we'll be in sequence now every 5 years after, which I think is better. That said, and I said it at the last meeting, there is very little competition that's generated by these bid packages. There's very few companies, especially for special ed transportation, that enter into that type of bidding. So what we see and what is a concern across the state is, and I don't think Massachusetts even alone, is that districts are kind of, I wouldn't say at the whim, but they have a couple of companies to work with that can do the type of service that's required. And in our case, it's really one.
And the special education reimbursement rate is not very high.
The circuit breaker rate, so that would include all of our special ed costs. It's maybe 30%.
Well, I don't like to pass the buck over to the legislature, but I think that's something that they need to address, so I yield the floor.
Councilor Boschman.
so when you were here 2 weeks ago, you told me and you told them $4.1 million for special ed. Is this $300 some odd $1,000 for special ed too? Oh, is
That would be, yeah, mainly, yep. Yes. I would say for the FY24, the big increases we've seen were for the special ed transportation specifically.
So you're telling me for year 24, we spent $4.5 million for 160 students?
4.5 would be for about 600, because in-district would be about 420, 430, and then out-of-district would be 160. That's what it is. It ranges 150 to 160. 20 or 30 of those would probably be residential, so they wouldn't require daily transportation. The other 120 to 130 would require transportation from their home to the school, and that school might be in Oakham, it could be in Chelmsford, it could be in Worcester, it's places all around the state. within, an hour or so.
Oh, okay. Within 1 hour. Wow. Maybe I'll have to go into the bus business.
I wish you would, because then maybe we'd have more bids.
Motion to approve? Second?
Motion made and seconded to approve. If there are no objections,
He's killing me.
it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. If there are no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you. Legislative Affairs Committee will be starting momentarily.